With graphics like that, this guy must work out.
How's it going, everyone? Thought I would give you some tips on home buying. So I'm going to kind of go through this. Hopefully it'll be some help to those of you that are looking to buy um, in the market for flipping a house or buying your first home. My experience, all these things are something you need to take into account. So let me give you a little introduction. I've been a handyman for 10 years. I do a lot of repairs for real estate agents, do a whole lot of home inspection repairs, post-buying, pre-buying repairs on homes. That's a majority of my business, as well as doing little repair lists on homes, helping people do remodels, a little bit of everything. So thought I would put this together and give you some hints on some stuff that hopefully will help you save some time. So home buyers, when you're first starting, it's kind of if you've never bought a home, you might be asking where to start. Principally the first place you need to start is probably getting with a lender to find out what you qualify for. Most real estate agents will require that before you even start talking to them. That way they at least know what price range you're in the market for. Additionally, most people are going to want to know, try to prevent mistakes. For most individuals, your first large commitment purchase is going to be your home. It's a major asset that a vast majority of your income is going to go for, whether it's the utilities, the payments, and all the money you'll end up putting into it over the years. So it's something you want to make the right choice on and not go in too lightheartedly. And then probably a lot of questions around buying your first home. So lenders, real estate agents can give you some pointers on certain aspects of it, but I'm hoping this will kind of give you some insight on things you need to look for that could possibly cause you a lot of heartache on down the road. So a little acronym I came up for is label it, and I'll go through what each one of those letters mean. And I've got these listed in order of importance as well as in order of cost. So as you go down each one of these, the cost gets a little less significant. But when you're looking for a home, maybe you're actually looking for it from the other direction and not taking into account some of the issues I'm bringing up. So hopefully this helps you out. So the first item is location. Location is going to be key for just about anybody looking to buy a home. You're probably going to want something in close proximity to where you work, whatever that might be. Maybe you work from home, or maybe you travel a lot, so you got to be near an airport. All that has to come into account when you're looking for a house. And it's not really something, you can't really buy a home and then move it to the location you want. It doesn't really work that way. Schools, if you've got kids or you're in college, say, and you're looking for a house and you still want to be close to schools or be close to a good school, that'll be a factor you need to take into account. If you're a young person, you haven't started having kids yet, just married, or looking to get married, this will be a factor you need to take into account if you plan on having children. What kind of school systems are there in the area where you're looking to buy. And then social events. So this may be being close to friends and family. It could be that you like, the downtown life and want to be near places to go out and eat, drink in the evenings. You may want to be in the heart of everything happening in a large city, or you could be the exact opposite and want to be as far away from that as humanly possible. So all these are things you need to take into account. Your location is going to be key and not something you can easily change. The age is going to be your next large factor. The age of a home will tell you a lot. So when you're looking to buy a home, almost Zillow, a lot of the websites, real estate agents will probably be able to tell you when the home was built. That's going to give you a lot of insight for things that could be wrong with the home. So kind of list these in order of value for replacements. So HVAC units, depending on what unit's in the house, usually 13. Anything over 13 years, a lot of people start getting iffy about. They will last a lot longer than that, depending on the unit. But over that mark, you're at least going to want to get it serviced, and most home inspectors are going to call that out. Your roof, depending on what kind of roof you got, they've got 3 tabs, which basically look like 3 individual tabs. Those roofs, for the most part, 10, 15 years maybe. And then architectural that don't look like 3 tabs, they actually look like layers and layers of shingles stacked on top of one another. Those roofs are usually 25, 30-year roofs. So make sure you have a home inspection done. But that's one issue that is a key indicator. Also look at your downspouts. And in your downspout catches, see if there's a lot of granules in there. That could be an indication of hail damage on the roof, or it could just be an indication that the roof is really old and you're losing a lot of rocks off of it. A little bit residual is going to be common, but if you can get a whole handful off of one of your downspouts, that could be an indication that your roof is in need of repair or replacement. Water heater, that's another one. Water heaters are good for about 10 years for the most part. You can buy some high dollar ones that will last longer than that, but for the most part, a good rule of thumb, about 10 years is pretty much the max life of most water heaters on the market. They're not really that expensive of an item to replace. However, when they go out, they usually cause catastrophic damage. So it is something you want to stay ahead of. If you're thinking it's old, if it has signs that it's getting old, and I'll post another video on how to detect some of these issues, but that is one item that you're going to need to make sure you stay ahead of on your maintenance schedules. And when it gets to around that 10-year mark, you better plan on replacing it. Plumbing issues, this one kind of depends. So if you're buying a newer house, probably not that big of a deal, but if you're one who wants to buy an old Victorian home, or you're just looking at an older house to buy, maybe if you just move in and don't want to do a whole lot to it, may not be that big of a deal. But if you're planning on getting into a home and possibly remodeling the bathrooms, remodeling the kitchen, moving things within the house, depending on where your house is located, you could be looking at quite a few things that have to be updated. If it's got cast plumbing pipes throughout the house, it could be that all that's clogged up, so a simple bathroom remodel could turn into replumbing half your house. Also, older houses aren't insulated as well, so you could be having plumbing issues when it gets cold out. Having water lines freeze and bust and stuff like that. So those are all just issues you need to take into account. Electrical is kind of the same way. Houses that were built in the early 1900s, especially those in the 1800s, could have knob and tube or paper wiring in them. For the most part, there are fire hazards with some of that, especially when you get to messing in the wall. So a lot of them, though, as long as you don't touch anything, it may go for another 100 years before it causes any issues. The big problem you run into is when you want to remodel a house that has older wiring in it. Depending on how in depth you get into the home and your building codes in your area, you could end up looking at a whole entire rewire on the house. So something to take into account. All these are factors. There's other issues as well, but these are some main key factors that you need to look at when you're buying a home. Is look at the age of the house and take into account some of the issues you could have run into. The bones of the house. So structurally, the house is, all the other issues up to here are very important. The bones, before you really go any further, you need to make sure that the bones of the house are good. So making sure that you don't have a lot of cracks. Look at your brick. If it is a brick house, look at your brickwork on the outside of the house. Look for crack lines in your mortar joints. Look in your floors. If there is tiling in the house, usually the first place it'll crack is just like the brick on the outside. It'll start cracking in your floor joints. So your grout lines between your tiles, you'll start having cracks along those. Could even have cracked tiles. Sometimes the cracked tiles may just be because somebody dropped something on it, but especially if it's cracking along the joints between the tiles, running between several of them, or bricks along the outside of the house, gaps between the brick and the window facings or door facings, those are all indicators that you've got some foundational issues. A lot of older houses could have these issues. Usually they don't show up right off the bat. It takes 5+ years before they start settling and cracks start showing up. Other issues are cracks over your doorways. So you could have a straight crack, which could just be a drywall stream, something that goes straight vertical. But if you got cracks going away from the door, kind of the way this red mark's indicated, that's usually an indication that your foundation is settling. Sometimes it may just settle a little and that crack may never grow anymore. Most of the time, once it starts settling, though, that crack will continue. And all these are indications of issues that you may have to look into getting repaired. These can be very expensive depending on what the issue is. While we're on this, your foundation is something you need to take into account. Most houses are either built on pier and beam or a crawl space, whichever you want to call it, or slab foundation. The difference is slab is a solid concrete slab. All of your plumbing is usually ran in the slab itself, and your electrical wiring runs in the walls just like on a crawl space or a pier and beam house. The thing to take into account on these is usually there's less maintenance with lines cracking and things like that on a slab house. But if you're moving into a house and you plan on remodeling, so you want to move a bathroom, you want to remodel a bathroom, move a toilet from one spot to another, make a bigger shower, your cost is going to go up from your subs, primarily your plumber, to move those water lines and drain lines that are underneath the house. So make sure you take that into account. Next one's enticements. So this may be something that you look for. This may be your first thing to look for. A lot of people, after they get their budget, they're strictly looking for, I want a big bathroom, I want this finishings, I want large ceilings. To me, this is much further down the list, but it is something you need to take into account. So, your kitchen, what kind of kitchen are you wanting? Your bathrooms, are you wanting high-end finishes? Are you okay with just a common bathroom because you're not looking for anything high-end? Your room sizes, how big are your bedrooms? How big's your master bedroom? A lot of this is going to depend on your price range. So, bigger master bathrooms, bigger master bedrooms. Usually you're getting into higher end houses, not really starter homes. Your yard, what kind of yard do you want? You want a large yard for kids to play with? Are you at the stage where you don't want a yard at all because you don't have the time to mow it, or you're just physically not able to? Do you want room to entertain outside? Those are all things you need to take into account. But in my mind, if you've made sure the 3 items before this meet are adequate, most of this stuff can be fixed over time. Just taking into account everything we just talked about. And then your finishings, if you want large 6-inch baseboards, crown molding in every room in the house, countertops that are all quartz or marble, those those kind of things are all kind of enticements. They're issues that most people look for out of the gate when they're buying a home, but they're also things you can add to a home at a later date. And then the last one is lining. So lining to me is insulation. Not just insulation, but the integrity of the house. So your doors, when you're looking at your doors through your house, especially your exterior doors, can you see daylight through the doors? Could be an indication that you just got a bad weather strip. Could be an indication that the door was hung wrong or you got loose hinges. Your windows, make sure you got at least dual pane windows, or if you don't, realize that you're probably going to have some loss of efficiency of your heating and air unit due to leaks. Insulation. Most homes have a way of looking in your attic. You may not be able to look in your exterior walls, but take a peek in your attic. Make sure you've got adequate insulation. And for most homes, at least an adequate layer would be that it is over the ceiling joist. So your ceiling joist are the boards that run along the ceiling that you screw the drywall into. They're usually 2x6s in most houses. Some older houses maybe 2x4s, could be even deeper than that. But what you're looking for is the insulation to be at least at the level of that ceiling joist or above it. So take that into account. So I listed these last because these are simple issues for the most part. Replacing all the windows could be a major ordeal, but in relation to everything else that was listed here, these are the ones that I think are kind of simple fixes compared to everything else. So in conclusion, remember to label it. Look at your location, look at your age of the home that you're buying, look at the bone structure of the home, your enticements, and then your lining, so your insulation. So I think if you take all these items into account, it will help you tremendously. So hope this video helps. Let me know if you got any questions. Thank you all.
This guy needs to be a poster child for birth control. If you like that video, hit subscribe.